Hello, I'm Robert Horton, and I'm here to introduce another program in Scarecrow Academy, a film discussion series presented by the nonprofit Scarecrow Video in Seattle. I'm a member of the National Society of Film Critics and the programmer historian in residence for Scarecrow, and it's my pleasure to once again be leading another semester of Scarecrow Academy. This one is called The Art in Noir, Film Noir and the Director. We meet online on Saturday afternoons at 2 p.m. Pacific Time via Zoom. It's free. Our next class is Saturday, March 27th, and we will be looking at the 1950 film The Asphalt Jungle, directed by John Huston. You can register for this event by going to the Scarecrow Academy page at Scarecrow's website. Click on a link. They will send you an email whereby you can register for the event. You can also look around there and find out how to watch the film before our discussion. Very important point there. You can also rent the movie from Scarecrow if you'd like to do it that way. I will say a few things about this director and the film in our video introduction, which is already ongoing, as you've noticed. By the time John Huston came to direct The Asphalt Jungle, he was already a well-known and indeed Oscar-winning filmmaker. He was also already an incredibly colorful figure with a varied life history. It's a little hard to separate legend from fact when it comes to Huston's life, but we know he was born in 1906, the son of a very famous American actor, Walter Huston. His mother was a journalist, a newspaper reporter, so John Huston had the acting and writing genes baked into him, I guess. The Huston acting dynasty has continued, of course, with John's children, Angelica and Danny Huston. Also has a grandson, Jack Huston, who is in the game with some success. You may know John Huston himself from his acting sideline, as well as being a director and a writer. He gave a number of remarkable performances on screen, notably including the Heavy in Chinatown. Legends abound about Huston's biography. As I was saying, he was a boxing champ in his youth. He got involved in some kind of cavalry in Mexico somehow, but he became an expert horseman from that, at least. He lived like a tramp for a while in Paris as he was trying to become a painter, but really it was screenwriting in the 1930s that was his ticket to success in Hollywood. During that era, it was not common for screenwriters to ascend to the director's chair, as it is at least not uncommon today. But Huston was sort of in the vanguard of a wave of that, about the same time Preston Sturges did it. In 1941, Huston directed his first film, and it was The Maltese Falcon, a project for which he did something that the previous two adaptations of The Maltese Falcon had somehow not done, which was just to stick to Dashiell Hammett's novel and do a very faithful adaptation of it. Seems really obvious, but turns out to be quite inspired for that classic film. That film also established Huston's genius for casting, which I hope you will agree is on abundant display in The Asphalt Jungle. Huston served as a filmmaker for the military during World War II, including a documentary about veterans with PTSD, Let There Be Light, that is a remarkable film and which I think also had quite an impact on how Huston made movies and told stories after that. He scored a triumph with his 1948 film, The Treasure of the Sierra Madre, won 2 Oscars, one for directing it and one for adapting the screenplay. In a way, the Asphalt Jungle follows in the sardonic vein of The Maltese Falcon and The Treasure of the Sierra Madre, because it too is about a group of people who are striving for treasure, and the goal proves illusory and ends mostly in disaster, their process. The Asphalt Jungle is based on a novel by W.R. Burnett, a well-renowned author at that time, whose career began with the novel Little Caesar, which was almost immediately made into the famous gangster movie at the beginning of the 1930s. Burnett had a prolific run after that, bouncing back and forth between screenwriting and writing novels. An example of his work was the 1941 film High Sierra. Adapted from his novel, he also worked on the screenplay with a screenwriter named John Huston. For The Asphalt Jungle, however, Huston collaborated with a different screenwriter, Ben Maddow, a writer who would be blacklisted within a couple of years of this film coming out, and then not blacklisted in a slightly mysterious way. We're going to talk about that maybe a little bit in our Saturday session. The Asphalt Jungle is one of the classic heist movies in which the criminals are treated, I think, with an unusual amount of sympathy, perhaps, even when they're being scoundrels. One character has the classic line, "Crime is only a left-handed form of human endeavor," and the movie seems to sympathize with that sentiment. The movie is perhaps more noir-ish than pure film noir. Maybe, for one thing, it doesn't have a classic femme fatale at its heart who's going to lure the men into destruction. It does have a keen sense of how human weakness will lead more or less inevitably to a bad ending. So that fits it very comfortably in the noir universe. The film has a less romantic director at the helm than some of the other noir films. And you could almost argue that if the German filmmakers that we've looked at previously brought fatalism and kind of a dark romance to their visions of the underworld, then Huston's American roots bring about a more squared off, maybe more procedural result, though no less insightful in the realm of human psychology. For example, although Miklos Rozsa, the great Hungarian composer who did the music for Double Indemnity and Crisscross, is the composer on the Asphalt Jungle, this movie is actually bereft of a musical soundtrack, except for the very beginning, the opening credits and the opening sequence, and then again at the very end, the last few minutes of the film. For the rest of the movie, we are on our own, without the comforting blanket of an orchestral score. The film lives up to its title, unfolding in an unnamed metropolis in the Midwest. We know it's in driving distance of a few hours of Cleveland, I guess, where no trees grow and where cops are no more heroic than the criminals are. This is a collection of back rooms and small apartments, occasionally interrupted by a visit to a big fancy jewelry store or one of the apartments kept by the wealthy lawyer played by Louis Calhern. Our release from this movie comes only at the end of the film when we actually glimpse skies and clouds and trees and an expanse of grass. A juxtaposition that jibes with other noir movies between country and city, notably Out of the Past from our series. Huston's direction is dynamic, constantly finding interesting ways of arranging people in front of a camera as though directing our eye to the way the pecking order is playing out in the frame. Huston is not going to show off. He's not that kind of director with the camera. Rather, his style is cool and considered, just as the criminals in the heist are judicious about the calmly plotted out steps of their plan. Huston did not want stars for his cast, but he assembled a brilliant roster of character actors, including a leading man who was kind of a Hollywood cast-off at that point, even though it was still early in his career, Sterling Hayden. And I think two inspired choices for the main two female roles, Jean Hagan, who would be Oscar nominated a couple of years later for her role in Singin' in the Rain. She was the silent movie queen who could not adapt to the talkies. And another actress, let me check my notes here. Oh yes, Marilyn Monroe, in her first significant movie role. And there's a good story about how she got cast from her audition that I'm going to tell on Saturday. Particularly fine in the film is Sam Jaffe, a veteran actor at that point, who plays the criminal mastermind in the movie, erudite gentleman, whose own character flaw finds a particularly sweet payoff at the film's end. Maybe bittersweet for his character, but sweet for the audience watching it. Jaffe's performance was Oscar nominated, as was the film's screenplay, Huston's direction, and Harold Rawson's cinematography. It did not win any. That was the year of Sunset Boulevard and All About Eve, so there was not a lot of leftovers sitting around. But its status as a classic film of the left-handed form of human endeavor is assured, and one that we will explore when you join us on Saturday, March 27th, for a Scarecrow Academy Art in Noir session on John Huston's 1950 classic, The Asphalt Jungle.